Access Fort Wayne offers reflections of our community. Production facilities provided by Access Fort Wayne are a service of the Allen County Public Library. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting organizations. For more information about creating your own television program with Access Fort Wayne, call 421-1250.
United Center. And today my co-host is Terry Doran over here. His name is, he's always been on my show, Terry Doran. There you go. There you go. And then my guest, our guest, is Harvey Cox, the artistic director of Youtheatre.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So we are in this beautiful room, the green room, or something like that. Is this the green room?
This is a rehearsal studio.
Rehearsal, is it? Not bad.
We were in the green room downstairs.
Oh, but this one is the rehearsal room, and we're going to open up saying, welcome to my show.
Thank you.
Welcome for being.
I'm flattered to be asked.
And Terry, of course.
Thank you, Patty. Always a pleasure.
I know. Oh, anyways, we're going to be talking about the youth theater and you, of course, and how you started it.
I've been with Youtheatre for 37 years.
Oh my gosh, you are
Isn't that
Mr.
something?
Youtheatre.
I started in 1978.
Oh my goodness.
And I thought I would stay maybe 2 years at the most. And here I am.
And this is your second home, right?
This is
you
second.
said you found a home in Fort Wayne and
I found a home here at Youtheatre and in Fort Wayne. My father preceded me, Harvey Cox Sr., and he finally settled down here after moving all of us 59 times in show business.
59. 59.
times.
Wow.
It's almost like being an army brat, you know?
Well, it's like being an army brat. And he would go into town. He was a great promoter, and he'd go in for Paramount Pictures. He opened up a theater, or he'd promote the theater, and he'd go on his way. And he'd go ahead and establish himself wherever it was. And he would rent a house or an apartment for us. And my mother and my sister and I would follow. And she would set up the house for maybe 6 weeks or 2 months. And off we'd go again.
Well, did you have a big car or truck or van in those days?
We left a lot of, I wish I had the stuff we left behind. Because at one time when I was in kindergarten, my room was full, my walls were covered with cutouts of Joan Blondell and Ruby Keeler. My father was with Warner Brothers at the time, and they were Warner Brothers stars. James Cagney, whom I later met in my first show in New York. And I was just surrounded by movies all the time. I spent hours and hours backstage watching acts all the time.
Oh my!
The Three Stooges and as I said before, Red Skelton and people like that.
And that's how you became a director, actor,
This
writer.
is all I knew. I suppose if my father had been a plumber or a lawyer, I might have followed in his footsteps.
Well, let's thank your father that he was.
I do. I bless him. I loved him dearly.
A theater
and my
promoter.
Mother, she was a sturdy Irish lady, and who followed him all around this country.
Wow.
They were married when they were 17 years old.
Wow.
So my parents were young enough, they were almost like best friends.
17
17.
years old when they got married.
Yeah.
How
And
long?
my sister was born first, and I followed about 14 months later. And my children are 14 months apart.
Oh my goodness.
It's ironic, isn't it?
Keep it in the family. How many do you have?
I have two. I have Anne, who is now in medicine in Connecticut. I worked in Newtown this week.
Oh my God.
Very, very difficult for her.
She's
And my son
working.
Christopher. Yeah. And they're 14 months separated now.
Oh my
They were
goodness.
both born in Doctors Lang Hospital in New York City.
And you were born in New York City yourself,
I was born
right?
on Long Island, then
yeah.
called Long Island. My
New
father,
York, I
my
should
grandfather
say.
was an architect, built a beautiful home for his wife, and she died 2 months later.
Oh,
It's ironic, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
He was a wonderful guy. I'd spend all my summers down on Long Island with my grandfather. They'd ship me out to get rid of me, I think. And he'd take me fishing, we'd dig clams, we'd do everything. And my father, who had very few vacations, he was such a busy man, that he would come down and he would go fishing with him and dig clams with him and go eeling at nighttime with him. And one time we were out in a rowboat, and I was 4 years old, and he picked me up and threw me in the middle of Long Island Sound, and he said, "Swim." He said, "That's how I learned too, so you're going to learn the same way."
well, he's still
He
here.
was a tough guy.
Oh, no
But
kidding.
I admire him so much.
You're
And-
still here, so you must have swam.
Yeah.
Yeah, something.
Wonder what would have
I did
happened if
swim,
you hadn't
Patty,
learned.
yes.
Yeah. Thank goodness you learned, Harvey, and
And
started swimming.
years later, when I was 9 years old, he made me crawl up in top of a platform overlooking a swimming pool, and he said, "Now dive, jump off." He always had to face life, and without fear.
Challenge.
And so he was trying to teach me to be less fearful. So I jumped off the platform and it's like hitting concrete. He took me up in an open cockpit airplane one time, and my first dirigible, yeah, they still have them on TV. I took a ride. We were living in Akron, Ohio then. I was the Akron or the Macon. I think it was the Macon we were on. Anyway, this is the way I was raised. So show business has been always a part of my life, and I was doing, I had great success. I spent 30 years on the stage in New York and live television eventually and summer stock and all of that. And one time, I was in a big hit show, Life with Father, written by Howard Lindsay and Russell Crouse. And Howard is probably the greatest mentor I ever had in my life. But we do publicity jaunts and stunts to publicize the show. Yeah. And one day, Harry Forward, who was the PR director for Life of Father, sent me up to the Bronx to an orphanage. We called them orphanages in those days. And I fell in love with these children, so much so that after we finished the shoot, I went to the director and I said, "I don't do performances on Sunday. Could I possibly come up and work with these children and read stories to them?" And that was the beginning, I think.
Of the youth center?
You're working with children.
And like I said, I found a home after moving 59 times. And in show business in New York, you're in a hit play and you're in a flop play.
Yeah.
Everything ends. And my whole life was an ending to something. And I found my niche here in Youtheatre. And eventually I owned a summer theater in New Hampshire with two other guys. And I started a Youtheatre, a children's arm of the adult theater. And so when I came out here and I inherited Queenie Village, George Mallers bought it from me. And I had nothing else to do. And then I get a telephone call from Youtheatre saying, "We are in need of a director. Are you interested?" And I said, "I'll be right down." And I went downstairs in this very theater and was interviewed and hired as a Youtheatre director. And here I am.
And
37 years later,
later.
because I found a home. I love working with children. I love training them. I love directing. I love writing for them. It's
You do the script?
it's never ending.
You do your own script?
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we do have. How many plays? I've produced probably over 200 children's plays.
Oh my goodness.
You know.
And you act in plays as well,
Oh,
not just with children, but
I have acted at the Civic Theater, and I've acted at in all the theaters. The First Presbyterian Theater, the Arena Dinner Theater, where was the theater, there I was. I've directed 15 summer musicals for the Civic Theater also. And I have statues and Lifetime Achievement Awards from Arts United also, and also from the Civic Theater, which I'm very proud of.
well, you should be, and they're well deserved. That's
And
for sure.
wonderful awards, and I can't tell you the return I've received from young people who I've worked with at Youtheatre. They are wonderful, they're eager, they're alive, they're wide open to suggestion. And I worked with your daughter.
Yes,
time.
my
Yes.
daughter was lucky enough to have you as a teacher in one of your acting classes, and we're hoping she'll come back.
And we've just closed The Snow Queen. I read all the books that Hans Christian Andersen wrote about the Snow Queen. There were 8 books. And it took me a year because I wrote and rewrote and rewrote. And prior to that, I had done an original of Huckleberry Finn.
Oh, yes.
And you take a 500-page Mark Twain book and try to adapt
Oh yeah,
it.
no kidding.
And you can't use the language in the book. It's very objectionable today.
Oh,
So
yes, I remember.
that took a lot of effort too.
But you also write original plays.
Yeah, and I
not
wrote A
just
Christmas
adapt,
Carol
yeah.
a year ago. Larry Bauer and his boy Andrew is a wonderful actor. He played Huckleberry Finn for me too, and I wrote a Tom Sawyer, adapted a Tom Sawyer from another Mark Twain book. But I think my favorite children's play is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. From the Chronicles of
yeah.
Narnia.
That's got a message.
By C.S.
right there.
Lewis.
It's got a message.
I love the play. And I've done it and Wizard of Oz probably more than any other children's plays. Except a wonderful play called Best Christmas Pageant Ever, which we did 25 productions of it. And it was always successful. And a lot of, in fact, the young lady, Kaya Miller, who played the Snow Queen for me, her first play was Best Christmas Pageant Ever when she was a child, and she played a little angel. In it. Yeah, so.
Have you ever been on TV
Have I been on TV? Oh, yeah.
besides this?
I made my debut with a wonderful man, a young man at the time named Gene Hackman. He was on Studio One.
Heard of
Yes.
him, yeah.
He never dreamed he was going to become this major star, but he did, and I consider him the best actor in the movies.
He is very
I
good.
think he's
he's very
retired from film
I haven't
now.
seen a movie with him lately, but
I seem to have a
I really
leaning
like-
toward people like Gene Hackman, who came from theater, and Carl Malden. I used to make rounds with Leslie Nielsen and Carl Malden, and we'd take turns going into each office because we were different types. And
Leslie Nielsen
Leslie
is
Nielsen was the first one probably to make a splash on live TV, but playing very serious roles. It wasn't until years later that the comedy element, because he was a comic off the stage, and Carl Malden was one of the nicest people I've ever met. And I was thrilled when he became a major name on the stage, in Streetcar first, All My Sons maybe, and then in the movies. They were wonderful people. I've had a wonderful life.
I'm
Do you
sure
know
you
that, Patty?
did. But
I've met.
Present
I
tense
started
also.
meeting famous people when I was a little black. In fact, the first person I ever saw rehearse was Al Jolson.
Oh my
I
goodness.
was at the Paramount Theater in Boston, Massachusetts. It was my father's theater, and I used to go down to rehearsals. All the vaudeville acts would come in, 6 o'clock in the morning, and then go to school afterwards. But I was only 5 years old at the time, and I was sitting on his lap, and I said, "That man has a strange way of singing. Who is he?" And he said, "Al Jolson." And I said, "Well, I don't know him, but he was the Al Jolson." And later on, it was Red Skelton and the Three
Red Skelton
Stooges,
was
and
my favorite.
even Luella Parsons came out with the tour, and I met Ronald Reagan and Jane Wyman,
Oh my.
little dreaming this man was going to become president of the United States. And then, I've met a lot of people. Eleanor Roosevelt used to bring all her relatives and children to see Life of Father. That was a wonderful experience for me.
Oh, no
Life of
kidding.
Father. And I was waiting at the corner of the very end of Fifth Avenue one day, 1 Fifth Avenue, and going to a hotel called 1 Fifth Avenue across the street to see Dorothy Greener, who I was dating at the time, who was a young comedian. Wonderful. Played beautiful violin, too. And suddenly I heard somebody say, "Well, hello, Clarence, how are you?" And it was Eleanor Roosevelt with her bodyguards. She lived in a hotel downtown. And so she knew me as Clarence because I was playing Clarence Day Jr. It was a play about the Day family. It ran 8.5 years. I was only in it 3.5. But it was my first family, I think. That's probably, I'm trying to analyze why I stayed in that play as long as I did, because I found a family. Howard Lindsay and Dorothy Stickney were lovely, lovely people. And then I had a series of mothers and fathers after that. And William Daniels went on to a big career.
Yeah.
I just saw Billy on Grey's Anatomy a couple of weeks ago. And and my first play was I'll Take the High Road, which starred Jean Cagney, who was the younger sister of James Cagney. And I'm sitting there one day in the rehearsal hall, and this man walks through the door, and it's Jimmy Cagney, who I worship. I used to have cutlets on my bedroom, as I said. And so I met him, and later on, I met him at the Players Club down in Gramercy Park. And I had dinner with him. And he was so intelligent, so unlike the gangsters that he played. And I said, "If you could give me one piece of advice as an actor, what would it be?" He said, "Don't ever play a gangster."
He did.
And that's what he said.
You get stereotyped.
So, yeah, he was stereotypical. He tried to break away from it when he got out of Warner Brothers. But Warner Brothers, Public Enemy #1, which I saw again recently on TV, established him as a gangster type. And later on, I did a musical comedy for Michael Todd, who was married to Joan Blondell at the time. Right. And Joan became a very dear friend. And she was telling me one day that she and Cagney got the Warner Brothers contract at the same time. They were in play Penny Arcade in New York. And the result of that play, they were taken to Hollywood. And Joan had a wonderful career, and she was a dear, darling lady. Mike Todd was the toughest guy I've worked for, but he was a great guy. He eventually married Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I met her
knew
too.
The name was familiar.
Oh, my
She
stars.
She had done the movie of The Life of Father, and so we did a Glamour magazine layout with her, I guess. She was 16 years old, and she was the most beautiful young lady I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen anybody as beautiful as she is. The coloring was beautiful, the eyes.
I was violet. Her eyes were violet.
Oh, yes, and she had thick eyelashes, but she was beautiful. In fact, her entire family was there, her mother, her father, and her brother, her older brother. They were all handsome and beautiful.
Wow.
The whole family was something like a picture postcard.
Are they from England?
Yes,
They're from
all from England.
Okay,
Yes.
that's good. That's good.
And she was tiny little lady,
a little girl.
16 years old. She was wonderful.
I was going to ask, we're here now in Arts United Center.
When I first started here at the Youtheatre, it was called the Fine Arts Foundation.
Fine Arts Foundation.
And
And
the
they changed
Civic-
the name to Arts United, a Greater Fort Wayne.
Oh, that's a long
In between, it was
Oh.
Civic Theater, right?
And,
That's how I
and the
remember
Civic
the
Theater's
Civic
housed
Theater.
here,
Yeah.
and the Ballet Doesn't Rock Record, which they just did to great success. This is I'm quoting my father. My mother said, "Why have you stayed here? Come back to Fort Wayne so often?" Because I love the people. I love show business. It's a very unique town.
It's
And
not
it is
too
unique.
big and not too
It has
small.
a successful civic theater, a youth theater, a ballet, a philharmonic orchestra, several major art galleries. It's a small town, really. Its population is 200 and some thousand now, but it's a fascinating, wonderful community, and it's a great city to bring up children. I think their exposure to all this is wonderful. And now we have a baseball stadium.
Right
They go to
downtown
baseball
here,
games.
yeah.
It's wonderful. The downtown is growing again. It's come alive again, which my father in 1951, I think it was, unloaded all the theaters and moved out south and built the village, Quimby Village, because downtown had died. And it's taken all these years and all these wonderful mayors and people of Fort Wayne to revive it. And it's reviving now. It's wonderful.
I was going to ask the future of the youth theater here.
Well, Leslie Horman is now the executive director of Youtheatre, which I was for many years. And she has rejuvenated the youth theater. I think she has saved it, actually, because when I was executive director, it had hit a plateau and was operating and was okay, but I have never worked with anybody who works as hard as Leslie does. She's in a promotion. How many schools every week? The Boys and Girls Club and every organization that she can bring into youth theater on the stage or into the audience is her goal in life. And she's done a wonderful. Linda Ruffalo is the new president of our board, and she's been wonderful and helped create a new youth theater. And then I'm now the artistic director, but it gives me the chance to write. And we have only presented original plays
That's good.
since
That's what I
Leslie
like.
took over.
I like
Linda.
originality,
Yeah.
uniqueness.
Yes, so it's unique. In many, many ways, youth theater is unique also.
Oh,
And these
definitely.
wonderful children, I don't care what generation it is, I think the children today are a little more sophisticated than they were 37 years ago. And they've grown up with computers, and they have these little
Calculators.
cell phones
Oh,
now, and they
absolutely.
Androids and everything else. In fact, I was giving notes the other night on stage for the Snow Queen, and I saw two boys looking down, and I said, something's up out there, and a boy behind them was laughing, and I said, excuse me, what's going on there? I'm giving notes. You're being very rude, you're not paying attention. They have been texting one another, and this is what directors and teachers run into now. But we've grown up with the children.
Changing times, and you
We have
adjust.
to.
And
We have to change with the times. We can't say, oh, the old days.
At 3 minutes. I was going to say.
I can talk forever.
I know. Oh, sorry.
Wow, we should.
For the future, what is coming up? We have 3 minutes. What shows are coming up?
A Nazi the Spider is the next youth theater play.
When is that?
And that is in May.
May. Oh, that's around my birthday.
April.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
That's right.
The next thing at the Youth Theater is a production of Oliver that we're doing in cooperation with IPFW Theater Department. And John McConnell is directing it, and Leslie is the assistant director. And it's a wonderful show. It's the first musical I ever directed for the Civic Theater. Again, it's full of children.
Oh, yeah.
Giving them wonderful opportunity to sing and dance and be in a product, a wonderful product.
You know something? This has been a real fast 1/2 hour.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And your enthusiasm is
I
contagious.
get carried away, and
it's
use
as
the
lively
hands.
as the day you started. That's a
Well,
tribute
thank
to
you for having me.
Nice to be had. Oh. Anyways, thank you, Harvey.
Thank you.
Oh,
You
Harvey,
are a good man.
it is a pleasure
It
always.
goes back to the old days of the
Terry
Brisbane
Doran.
Library.
Yeah. When
Well,
you
you
were,
know, this is the end
And
of
how
the
is
show.
it? It has changed too.
yeah, the
It's
library.
grown.
Well, it's going to be the end of the show.
Yeah.
This is Patty Hunter or Patty's Page, and thank you for tuning in, and hope to see you next week. Enjoy the week. God bless.
What?